My parents gave everything to my sister, and they expected me to give her my room too. When I refused, my mother stared at me and said, "Family helps. Don't be selfish." I smiled and responded, "I understand." Then I left. But days later, my parents were at my door begging. I am 31 years old, a lawyer, and could I never have foreseen such a thing in my life? I lived with my parents in the city, not because I was poor and couldn't pay for a rental place, not because it is hard or anything. Truth be told, I bought this house. I pay for the mortgage, bills, groceries. My parents don't help with 1 single cent. But ask my mother, and she will say that it is the least I can do for them. Family comes first, always, I was brought up. Good kids help their parents, my mom would say, every time I refused to do something I didn't want to. Like when I was 12 and made a saving for many months, which I finally used to buy myself a bicycle. Before I could, my mom looked at me in the most unpleasant expression and said, "Your cousin Madison doesn't have one. How do you think she would feel when she sees you with yours?" Later, I gave my money to Madison. That was when I had learned that to avoid guilt, I had to meet expectations. And that's how I came to be here, supporting my parents because it's the right thing to do. My parents are Margaret, 51, and Richard, 54, retired teachers who have spent all their lives in the countryside. For reasons I was told were because they wanted a change of scenery, they decided to move to the city. At least, that is what they said to me. The truth is, I didn't ask for it or decide it. My mother planned it, and I just paid the bill. We moved into a 3-bedroom house in Chicago, not a mansion, but big enough for all of us. The only thing I made sure of was keeping the master bedroom for myself. After all, I was paying the mortgage. The original plan was that my parents were to spend their retirement peacefully downstairs, and I would work from home upstairs in my office. All seemed well, till my mother decided once more to make something right for me. So, one morning at breakfast, as if it was not a big deal, she casually said, "Your sister Lisa and Ethan are thinking of moving to the city. Lisa is pregnant, and they really need help. Things aren't going so great for them in Springfield." Lisa, 30, and her husband Ethan, 33, had always been the type of couple who jumped from one problem to another. They were never fully broke, but just could not seem to get on their feet. But I knew the minute my mother mentioned she was pregnant, trouble was coming. But still, deep down, I thought they would transfer elsewhere and get them their own apartment. My naivety, really. A few days later, Mom sat me down with that sweet tone of hers, but with that urgency that always meant she'd already made her mind up. "We have invited Lisa and Ethan to come stay with us for a time, until they get back onto their feet." She didn't ask if this was okay, she told me. "Only for a time," she protested, "family helps." I nodded, certain that once they had their place, everything would get back to normal. In truth, though, they had no intention of going anywhere. A week later, Lisa and Ethan arrived with suitcases in their hands and the attitude to go with it. They did not act as though they were going to stay over for a while. They acted as if this was the house of the new owners. That was when all hell broke loose. All this was still in my mind when Lisa and Ethan appeared at my door with suitcases. I was paying for absolutely everything: food, bills, mortgage, and now I had 2 more people to take care of. The tension in the house started to build from day one. No one had bothered to ask if it was okay with me that they moved in. They came in as if coming home was the most normal thing for them to do. Family comes first, I kept telling myself, but deep inside, I couldn't get that feeling of discomfort away. Lisa was never the most responsible person. She always got herself into impossible situations and expected others to get her out. And Ethan, well, his entitled attitude irritated me. He wasn't a bad person, but he acted as if everyone should adapt to his needs without question. He reminded me of my mother. My first part-time job, when I was 16, was to save up for something I really wanted, a laptop. But when I finally had enough money, my mother looked at me and said, her tone so serious, "Your sister needs it more than you do. You can work and save up for another one." And in the end, I gave my money to Lisa. And here I was again. It would seem my needs were always secondary to my sister's. Just a few days into her stay, Lisa began making those little remarks, seemingly harmless, but quickly becoming irritants. "This house is so big. It must be hard for you to clean it all by yourself," she said casually. Or, even worse, "I'm obviously beyond excited for this baby to finally arrive. We'll need room for all that stuff." Well, at first I tried just to let things go. Nothing was worth the fight. That is, of course, until the bomb hit. One evening, when I was back home from the exhausting work, Lisa and Ethan asked for a word. Maybe they'll finally confess that they're taking up too much space and having eaten everything without so much as offering to pay their due share, I thought. But no. Lisa, with her careless expression, said, "We've been thinking, and it would be much wiser for us to have the bedroom." I stared at Lisa, completely stunned. "We need more space," Ethan added in an absurdly calm voice. "The baby is going to need a lot of things, and your room has the walk-in closet and private bathroom." A wave of frustration hit me. My name was on the deed to the house. I was the one paying every bill, covering every expense, without asking for anything in return. And now, they expected me to just give up my own bedroom? It took me a moment to process it. "Why don't you just stay in the guest room?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "It's pretty big, and it's already set up." And then, their sheer audacity hit me full force. "But that room doesn't have a walk-in closet," Lisa replied as if it were the most natural thing in the world, "and the baby will need space." I looked at her for a few seconds, feeling my patience slipping away. Finally, I spoke firmly without raising my voice. "I'm not giving up my bedroom." Ethan looked surprised. He had probably expected me to cave. But that wasn't going to happen. "You can stay in the guest room or find another place to live," I said, making it clear that the conversation was over. Lisa looked at me, offended, as if I had just insulted her. And at that moment, I knew this wasn't going to end well. After that uncomfortable conversation where Lisa and Ethan had the nerve to ask for my room, I thought that, maybe, after thinking it through, they would realize how ridiculous they sounded and back off. I mean, who in their right mind asks the person paying for absolutely everything to simply give up their own space? But of course, that's not what happened. In the following days, I started noticing signs that the situation was getting worse. Lisa and Ethan were getting way too comfortable. They left their things scattered all over the living room, their shoes piled up near the couch, and Lisa was already talking about where she was going to put all the baby stuff, as if the house belonged to her. The feeling that something was about to explode grew stronger with every passing minute. One afternoon, I had to go into the office for important meetings. Normally, I work from home, but I came back around lunchtime to grab something to eat. And that's when I saw it. As soon as I stepped inside, I noticed my things scattered across the hallway. My heart started pounding. My clothes were piled on the floor, and my computer monitor was there, unplugged, as if someone had been in the middle of moving things around. I walked briskly toward my bedroom, and there was Lisa, packing up the rest of my stuff. I couldn't believe it. She didn't even flinch when she saw me walk in. She barely glanced at me before saying, completely casually, "Oh, hey, I'm almost done." I felt my blood boil. "What on earth are you doing?" I shouted, not caring about my volume. But Lisa acted as if nothing was wrong, as if this was the most normal thing in the world. "Mom said we could start moving in here. The baby is on the way, and we need the space." My rage surged. My mother, who didn't pay a single cent toward the mortgage, had decided on her own that Lisa and Ethan could take my room. I wasn't even surprised. Ever since we were kids, my mother had always found ways to make me feel guilty for not giving in to Lisa. "You're the older sister, you need to learn to share," she would tell me whenever Lisa took my toys without asking. "You need to help your sister, she needs it more than you." I wasn't going to let this happen again. "No," I said, stepping into the room, "I already told you. You can stay in the guest room." Lisa crossed her arms and shot me a look as if I were the one being unreasonable. "That room is too small for the baby, and it doesn't have a walk-in closet. We need more space." My voice rose, unable to contain my frustration. "I'm the one paying the mortgage. I'm the one maintaining this house. You and Ethan contribute absolutely nothing. If you need more space, you can find your own place. Lisa didn't back down. On the contrary, she seemed even more irritated. Mom said it was fine, she repeated, as if that settled the argument. That was when I completely lost control. I stormed out of the room, my heart pounding, furious. I wasn't going to let them walk all over me in my own house. With determined steps, I grabbed my phone and called my mother. Mom, did you tell Lisa and Ethan they could move into my bedroom? There was a long silence on the line, as if she didn't know how to respond. After what felt like an eternity, she finally spoke. Well, I thought it would be the best solution. They need the space, and you already have your office. It's not like you're using the bedroom that much. I couldn't believe it. Are you serious? I blurted out, unable to contain my indignation. My mother tried to calm me down, saying it wasn't a big deal and that we're family. But I wasn't going to tolerate it anymore. I pay the mortgage, I pay for the groceries, I pay the bills, and you think it's okay for Lisa and Ethan to just take over my bedroom? My voice echoed through the house, filled with fury. By then, Lisa had probably heard the argument because she came storming out of her room, clearly furious. I'm not giving them my room, I repeated firmly. If they don't move their things out, they'll have to find another place to stay. At that moment, Ethan walked in, obviously agitated after hearing the shouting from the hallway. Are you really kicking us out when we have a baby on the way? He asked, outraged. What is going on here? I didn't hesitate for a second before answering. What's going on is that your wife thinks she can just take my bedroom without even asking me. And I'm telling you both right now, that's not going to happen. You can stay in the guest room, or you can leave. Ethan didn't take it well. He got defensive and launched into a speech about family and how I should be willing to sacrifice for them. We have a baby on the way, he insisted. Family is supposed to support each other, especially during tough times. It was the exact same phrase my mother used to tell me when I was a child and Lisa got herself into trouble. You have to be a good sister, Emily. She needs help. Don't be selfish. It was always the same. I was always expected to give in. But not anymore. I'm already paying for this entire house, I shot back, feeling the anger build inside me, and what are you two contributing? Huh? Nothing. And now you think you can just come in here and take my space like it's yours? The shouting escalated, and it became clear that neither of them was willing to back down. My mother tried to intervene, calling my name in a pleading tone, but I turned my back on her, too frustrated to listen to any more excuses. Lisa spun around abruptly and slammed the door to her room. Ethan just stood there, looking at me as if I were the villain in this entire situation. But I had had enough. You have until the end of the day to get your stuff out of my bedroom, I said coldly. If you don't, I'll do it myself. The rest of the day, I locked myself in my office, trying to calm down. I wasn't going to let them trample over me in my own house, especially when I was the one paying for absolutely everything. I knew that if I stepped out again, it would only lead to another argument. I didn't want to be part of that. But deep down, I knew this was only the beginning. Lisa and Ethan weren't going to give up easily, and I could already feel that my mother was going to get involved again. But I wasn't going to cave. Not this time. The next day, after the blowout with Lisa and Ethan, I hoped that, maybe, they would finally back off. I had made it clear that my bedroom was not up for debate. They could stay in the guest room or find another place to live. It seemed simple enough. But things didn't turn out as I expected. I decided to keep my distance. I wasn't looking for more drama. To be honest, I was still furious about everything that had happened. I spent most of the day working at the office, trying to act as if everything was normal. But the tension in the house was unbearable. By dinner time, I didn't care about the silence. It seemed like everyone was avoiding each other, walking on eggshells around the elephant in the room. I could live with Lisa and Ethan staying in the guest room, if they finally settled in without causing more problems. But then one thing happened that snapped me. I went to the kitchen one evening to prepare my dinner. As was my practice, I had done the groceries. But when I opened the fridge, there was almost nothing inside. The food I bought just 2 days ago, gone. And even the freezer too. And I knew my parents didn't eat so much. So then who else? Lisa and Ethan. I was already irritated, but I let it go. I'll just get some more tomorrow, I thought. They most probably took it all without asking. But it wasn't just the food. My mother came into the kitchen and didn't even glance at me. I sat down at the table to serve myself when I saw her place settings for Ethan, Lisa, my father, and herself. But not for me. First I thought she had forgotten. Then I waited. But no, she had just sat down and started eating like everything was all right. Incredible. I could feel the anger boil in my stomach. Nothing was left to do but to speak. You didn't serve me a plate, I said, looking into her face. She had looked at me hardly at all, then shrugged. You don't want to help the family, she responded indifferently, as if it was a sentence about the weather. So you don't eat with the family. I didn't say anything. Excuse me? My voice had already risen even before I knew it. I pay for all the expenses of this place. Food, the mortgage. Now you exclude me in my home? My father, as always, had just sighed and continued eating as if nothing was happening at all. Lisa and Ethan had smug smiles on their faces, as if they'd won some kind of power game. As I passed Lisa, she even had the nerve to smirk at me. That was it. I wasn't going to let them treat me like a stranger in the house I paid for. My mind was racing. I slammed the fridge door shut and walked out of the kitchen with determined steps. I knew just what I had to do. I went directly to my room, flipped open my laptop, and began to search for eviction forms. If they had thought they could disrespect me in this way, it was about time for them to look for somewhere else to stay. Patience had disappeared. I was not running any free hotel for anybody. I prepared the papers within less than an hour's time. 2 copies, one for my parents, and the second for Lisa and Ethan. At this moment, they crossed every boundary that existed. For the past weeks, they had constantly disrespected me as if to claim ownership of the house. I printed those papers and came into the sitting room where people were sitting, acting as if they had not done anything wrong. All this could not continue anymore. I said nothing as I came in, did not say a thing. All I did was to hand them over the documents. Ethan pale-faced when he saw them. If you're not out by tomorrow, I'm calling the police, I told him coldly. Ethan didn't expect that one. You can't be serious, he muttered, still disbelieving it. Oh, I'm dead serious, I firmly replied to that. He stood up then, his glare fixed on me, but I didn't bat an eyelash. I was done with this. You've been living here your whole life and never gave anything back, and now you think you're going to take over my house? No, not anymore. He lost his temper. We're family. He snarled furiously. But I didn't care anymore. I stood tall, my eyes fixed into his, and didn't move just because he was having a tantrum. We are family, but that does not mean I am just going to sit here and watch you walk all over me. I pay the bills for this house. Not you or Lisa, not mom or dad. If you can't respect me, you have no right to stay here. As predicted, Lisa started to cry and tried to play the guilt trip on me. I'm pregnant, and you're kicking us out. What kind of sister does that? I didn't waste any time in my reply. The sister who paid for everything, the one you would take advantage of. Ethan looked like he wanted to fight his corner, but I saw the realization creeping in. I knew he thought he had stepped over the mark. You've got 24 hours, I said coldly. That is more than generous. Till then, my voiceless mother spoke in a shaking voice. Not weakness. Manipulation. You can't do this, sweetheart. She pointed at the eviction notice I gave to her. They're your sister and brother-in-law. We are family. She was using the same tone she used when I was a child and made me give my things to Lisa. I remembered when I was 13 and I got a brand new bike as a gift. A few days later, my mother gave it to Lisa because she needed it more. But this time, I wasn't going to give in. I already did. You have 30 days to find another place. If you're not gone, I'll take legal action. Silence, absolute. My father looked away, not wanting to be a part of this. My mom's eyes welled up with tears, but I didn't care anymore. I turned and went to my room. It wasn't about the bedroom anymore. It was about me standing up for myself and not allowing them to continue using me. I locked my door, sat at my desk, and took a deep breath. I had just kicked my own family out. At one time, it would have sounded unimaginable that such a thing could have ever occurred. Now, well, necessary. For the rest of the night, the house was creepily silent. They all knew I was dead serious. No one called me from upstairs, and nobody tried to have a conversation. I drew the line. That night, probably for the first time in several months, I slept really great. The next morning I lay in bed for a few minutes, staring at the ceiling. Today was the day. Lisa and Ethan had 24 hours. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel angry. It wasn't about emotions anymore. This was about getting it done. As I went out of my room and into the kitchen, I could feel the difference. The tension in me was gone. Only the calm before the storm remained. I made myself breakfast with the little food that was left in the fridge. As I ate, it wasn't possible not to reflect on how fast it had all fallen apart. Not so long ago, everything was just dandy. I worked, paid the mortgage, bought groceries, and life moved forward. Then Lisa and Ethan showed up, and everything went to hell. Several hours later, my father entered the kitchen, poured some coffee, and sat down in silence. At last, he said, "Today Lisa and Ethan are leaving." I nodded, not uttering a word. He added in a low voice then, "They have nowhere to go." I stopped for a second, turned to him. "They'll stay at a motel until they figure things out," he added, as if that was supposed to matter to me. I knew this had to happen. I had been too lenient, and if I didn't set boundaries, they would keep taking advantage of me. They had their chance. If they can't respect me, they don't belong here. My father didn't fight it or try to make me feel guilty. He nodded and took another sip of his coffee. He knew right then I wasn't going to budge. They began packing at noon. I shut myself up in my room so I wouldn't have any more fights. Then, there came a knock on my door. I opened the door and found Ethan at my door, red-faced with anger. "Truth? You're really going to just let this be? Really go about kicking us out?" I folded my arms over my chest and didn't budge. "I gave you 24 hours. You know what you have to do." Ethan shook his head, clenching his jaw. "We're family. You don't do this to family." I took a deep breath and stood firm. Family does not use each other. I have given everything and you have only taken. Instead of being thankful, you tried to throw me out of my own house. I won't let that happen. I could see his frustration growing. He opened his mouth to argue again, but at that moment I knew he was running out of excuses. Reality had hit him. "So that's it, huh? You're really kicking us out?" I didn't bat an eyelid. "Yes, I am." Ethan looked at me for a few more seconds before he turned around and walked away in silence. "You can find another place to live, or you can stay in the guest room and respect me and my space. If you can't do that, then yes, you leave." I took a deep breath and shut the door behind me. I knew it was the right decision, but emotionally, it left me drained. By mid-afternoon, Lisa and Ethan were gone. I hadn't expected any heartfelt goodbyes, and there weren't any. The house felt different afterward. Quieter. Less tension in the air. They packed up, loaded the car, and left without saying a single word to me. That day my parents barely spoke. They were both still trying to wrap their minds around it. My mother didn't say a word, but it was clear she was troubled. Perhaps for the first time, she just had come to understand that I wasn't the villain of this story. That night, my mother knocked on my bedroom door. "Lisa and Ethan took things too far," she whispered, stepping inside and taking a seat on the edge of my bed. She looked at the floor for a while, lost in thought. Suddenly, she spoke again, this time with a tinge of guilt in her voice. I never thought it would come to this. I watched her in silence, realizing just how much weight they had placed on my shoulders. "It's not that I didn't want to help," I said, "but you acted like I didn't matter. Like my needs and my space meant nothing." She let out a sigh and nodded her head slowly. We sat in silence for some time, everything hanging in the air. I finally broke the silence. "I don't want you and Dad to leave." She looked ill at ease, but at least now, she seemed to grasp my point of view a bit better. "But if nothing changes, I won't be able to keep on living like this," I added. She nodded again and got up slowly. "We'll fix it," she promised. "Things will be different." I felt this weird mix of relief and exhaustion as she went out of my room. The problem with Lisa and Ethan had been solved, but I knew there was a long way to go with my parents yet. It wouldn't be easy, but at least they were willing to hear me out now. For the first time in weeks, I felt as though I could breathe. The house was quiet. The tight, suffocating tension that had been hanging over us finally was gone. I finally got my space back. It wasn't a perfect solution, but most importantly, I had my self-respect back. Now, when I look at it, sometimes to get what is best for you in life, you gotta make some decisions that don't sit easy with your family. That is called setting boundaries and demanding respect. Not being selfish. Now, as I sat in my room at last in one piece, I couldn't help but feel proud of myself. I didn't know what would happen to my relationship with Lisa, Ethan, or even my parents. But one thing I knew for sure. I would never let anyone take advantage of me again. Family or not. I had stood up for my right to choose. I'd spoken my truth. And I'd taken back my life. My life wasn't perfect, and it had never been easy. But it was mine. And that changed everything. Lying in bed that night, I felt a peace that I had not felt in a very long time. Whatever tomorrow would bring, I was ready to face it with restored strength and a self-respect that no one, not even my family, could take away from me.